Ethan Morgan stared at his laptop screen, watching his bank account dwindle with each passing day. The part-time job at the University Observatory barely covered his groceries, let alone the rent for his modest apartment near campus. 3 months behind on payments, his landlord's patience was wearing thin. "One more shot," he muttered, typing up another desperate roommate ad. Astronomy graduate student seeks responsible roommate. Quiet building. Split rent. Please help. He closed his laptop and collapsed onto his worn sofa, wondering if he'd have to abandon his doctoral research and move back to his parents' house in Nebraska. The thought made his stomach twist into knots. The email notification pinged just after midnight. "Hello, Ethan. Saw your ad. Can move in tomorrow and pay 3 months up front. Is this acceptable?" Lyra. Ethan nearly dropped his phone. 3 months up front? That never happened, he quickly replied, suggesting they meet the next day. The response came immediately. "Perfect. I'll arrive at 7 p.m. When the doorbell rang precisely at 7, Ethan opened it to find the most striking woman he'd ever seen. She had delicate features, unnaturally bright violet eyes, and dark hair with an unusual purple sheen under the hallway lights. Her movements were graceful, almost too perfect. As she glided into his apartment, "I'm Lyra," she said, her voice carrying a melodic quality he couldn't quite place. "Thank you for accommodating me on such short notice." "Nice to meet you," Ethan managed, trying not to stare. "The room isn't much, but it's ideal," she interrupted, examining the small space with peculiar intensity. "Proximity to the University Observatory is exactly what I need." Ethan blinked in surprise. "How did you know I work at the observatory?" "Your ad mentioned astronomy," she replied smoothly. "I made an assumption. Something felt off." But when she produced an envelope containing 3 months' rent in cash, Ethan's financial concerns overrode his instincts. "Where do you work?" he asked as they settled the paperwork. "I'm a research consultant," she answered vaguely. "My work involves studying patterns in various environments. I won't be here much during daylight hours." That night, Ethan lay awake, listening to strange humming sounds coming from Lyra's room. It wasn't mechanical, more like singing in a language he'd never heard before, with impossible notes that seemed to vibrate through the walls. The next morning, he found fresh coffee waiting, prepared exactly how he liked it, with 1 sugar and a splash of almond milk. "How did you know how I take my coffee?" he asked, puzzled. Lyra smiled mysteriously. "I'm observant." Over the next week, Ethan noticed other oddities. The refrigerator somehow stayed stocked with his favorite foods. His laptop battery never died when Lyra was nearby. And most strangely, he never once saw her eat or drink anything at night. The soft humming continued, accompanied by flashes of purple light seeping from beneath her door. When he'd press his ear against the wall, he could hear what sounded like one-sided conversations in that same musical, impossible language, despite the mounting strangeness. Ethan found himself inexplicably drawn to her. She asked fascinating questions about his research into potential habitable exoplanets, often offering insights that seemed impossibly advanced. "Have you considered focusing on systems with binary stars?" she suggested one evening, her violet eyes reflecting the starlight streaming through the window. "Some of the most complex life thrives in environments with variable light sources." As their hands accidentally touched while reaching for the same astronomy journal, Ethan felt an electric tingle race up his arm. Lyra quickly pulled away, but not before he noticed the faint purple glow that briefly illuminated her fingertips. "Sorry," she whispered. "Static electricity." But Ethan knew better. Something extraordinary was happening, something that defied everything. He thought he knew about the universe and the possibility of life beyond Earth. As days turned into weeks, Ethan couldn't ignore the growing list of peculiarities surrounding his new roommate. Lyra never seemed to sleep at least not when he did. No matter how late he stayed up working on his research or how early he woke, she was always alert, often gazing out the window at the night sky with an expression that looked almost homesick. The electronic disturbances around her were becoming more noticeable. Lights flickered when she entered rooms. His phone would lose signal mid-conversation if she walked past. Most tellingly, his telescope's digital interface would glitch whenever she came to the University Observatory to observe his work. "You're quite passionate," About the stars, she remarked one evening, as they stood on their small balcony. What drives your curiosity? I've always felt there's something more out there, Ethan admitted, watching her profile in the moonlight. Some connection we haven't discovered yet. Lyra turned to him, her violet eyes reflecting starlight with unusual intensity. And if you found it, this connection, would it change how you see yourself? It would change everything, he answered honestly. She stepped closer, and Ethan felt his heart race. The air between them seemed charged with electricity. For a moment, he thought she might kiss him, but instead, she quickly looked away. I should go prepare for tomorrow, she said, her voice suddenly distant. That night, the humming from her room grew louder than ever. Ethan tried to focus on his dissertation, but curiosity pulled him toward her door. Through the crack beneath it, brilliant purple light pulsed in rhythmic patterns. He knocked softly. Lyra, everything okay in there? The light instantly vanished. After a moment of silence, her door opened just enough to reveal her face. Yes. Everything's fine, she said, but something was different. In the dim hallway light, her skin seemed to shimmer with a subtle purple undertone, and her eyes, had they always been that vibrant? Your research, she continued quickly. I've been thinking about your theory regarding the habitable zone in the Vela constellation. Have you considered looking specifically at the star Vela 738? Ethan blinked in confusion. Vela 738? That's not in any of our catalogs. Something like panic flashed across her face. My mistake. I must have confused it with another designation. Before he could question her further, she closed the door, leaving him staring at the wood grain with growing suspicion. The following morning, Ethan searched astronomical databases for anything resembling Vela 738. Nothing came up. Yet the designation sounded strangely familiar, as though he'd heard it in a dream. His research advisor noticed his distraction during their weekly meeting. Everything all right, Ethan? You seem somewhere else today, Dr. Chen. Have you ever heard of a star designated Vela 738? The professor frowned. No, but Vela is an interesting region. Why? Just something my roommate mentioned. She seems unusually knowledgeable about astronomy. Bring her to the department mixer next week, Dr. Chen suggested. We're always looking for passionate people. That evening, Ethan returned to find the apartment filled with an unusual aroma, sweet and spicy, like nothing he'd ever smelled on Earth. Lyra, he called, setting down his bag. He found her in the kitchen, hastily putting away what looked like crystalline containers filled with glowing purple substances. You're home early, she said, closing the cabinet quickly. I was just preparing. A snack. What is that smell? He asked, moving closer. An old family recipe, she answered, but her eyes wouldn't meet his. From my homeland, and where is that exactly? You've never mentioned. It's very far from here, she said softly. A place you wouldn't find on any map. Something in her tone made Ethan's scientific mind click into place. The unexplainable behaviors, the technological interference, the strange light and sounds. Her impossible knowledge of astronomy, Lyra, he said carefully. Who are you really? For a moment, she looked like she might continue the charade. But then her shoulders relaxed in apparent surrender. I think you already know, Ethan, she whispered. You're a scientist. You observe patterns, and I haven't been as careful as I should have been. The air between them grew thick with tension. Outside, clouds parted to reveal a starry sky, and Lyra's eyes drifted toward the window, focusing on a point between two constellations. Tomorrow night, she said finally. Ask me again tomorrow night, and I'll show you everything. Ethan barely slept that night, his mind racing with possibilities that challenged everything he understood about the universe. By morning, he'd convinced himself he was overreacting. Perhaps Lyra was simply eccentric, to be part of some fringe scientific community with unusual practices. But as evening approached, the apartment began to hum with a subtle energy that made the hair on his arms stand on end. Precisely at midnight, Lyra's door opened. Come in, she called softly. It's time you knew the truth. Her room looked transformed. The furniture was arranged in a perfect circle around a small crystalline device floating inches above the floor. The walls seemed to shimmer with faint projections of star charts, constellations Ethan had never seen before. "What is all this?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "My communication array," Lyra replied, standing in the center of the room. "And this is me." She raised her hands to her temples and closed her eyes. The air around her rippled like heat waves above hot pavement. Her human appearance began to dissolve like watercolors in rain, revealing her true form beneath. Ethan gasped, but couldn't look away. Her skin took on a luminescent purple hue that pulsed gently with her breathing. Her eyes, when she opened them, were larger and more vibrant, containing specks of light that resembled distant stars. Her dark hair now floated weightlessly around her head, moving as though underwater. "You single quotes," Ethan struggled to find words. "Not human," she finished for him. "I come from a planet orbiting what you would call Valero 6, a star system approximately 68 light-years from Earth. My people are called the Velerans." Despite his shock, the scientist in Ethan noted she still had a humanoid forms, 2 legs, 5 fingers on each hand, but with a grace and subtle luminescence that was undeniably alien. "Are you afraid?" she asked, her voice now carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in his chest. "No," he realized with surprise. Amazed, confused, but not afraid. He reached out hesitantly, and after a moment's pause, she extended her hand. When their fingers touched, a warm, tingling sensation spread up his arm. "We're explorers," she explained, guiding him to sit beside her on the floor near the floating crystal. "My people have been studying Earth for centuries, but always from a distance. I'm part of the first-class contact research mission. You're studying us? Humans?" "Yes, particularly those working in fields that might lead to interstellar discovery. Your research on habitable exoplanets brought you to my attention." The crystal between them pulsed, projecting 3-dimensional images of star systems Ethan had never seen in any telescope. "This is my home," she said, as the projection showed a breathtaking world with 3 moons and rings similar to Saturn's, and these, the image shifted to show elegant beings similar to Lyra. "Are my people? Why me?" Ethan asked, trying to process everything. "Why reveal yourself now?" Lyra's expression grew troubled, the purple glow of her skin dimming slightly. "Something unexpected happened during my mission," she said softly. "I was supposed to remain detached, to observe and report objectively. But living among humans, living with you, Haz, affected me in ways my superiors didn't anticipate." She moved closer, the starlight in her eyes intensifying. "Velerans don't experience emotions the way humans do," she continued. "We value logic, knowledge, and cosmic harmony. But being here, I've started to feel ... things, powerful things. For Earth. For human culture. For you," the admission hung in the air between them. Ethan felt dizzy with the implications, but also strangely exhilarated. "Is that why you sometimes seem to struggle with controlling your appearance? Those moments when your skin or eyes change?" She nodded. "Emotional responses trigger physiological reactions that make maintaining my human disguise difficult, especially around you." The crystal suddenly pulsed with an urgent red light, emitting a series of musical tones that made Lyra tense. "What's happening?" Ethan asked. "A message from my research vessel in orbit," she replied, her voice tight. "They're concerned about my lack of detailed reports. They're requesting a full data transmission and considering whether to recall me. Would you go?" The question escaped before he could stop it. Lyra's gaze met his, filled with conflict that seemed all too human. "I don't know," she whispered. "For the first time in my life, I don't know what I should do." The days following Lyra's revelation brought profound changes to their shared apartment. No longer needing to maintain her human disguise constantly, she allowed her natural purple luminescence to show when they were alone together. The sight of her sometimes floating inches above the floor while reading his astronomy textbooks had become strangely normal to Ethan. "Your research on exoplanet atmospheres is quite good," she remarked one evening, hovering cross-legged above the couch. "But your instruments are ... limited." Ethan laughed. "Well, not all of us have access to advanced alien technology." She tilted her head, considering this. Would you like to? That night, she modified his laptop with crystalline components from her communication array, transforming it into a device capable of accessing astronomical data Ethan couldn't have dreamed existed. This is incredible, he whispered, scrolling through detailed analyses of star systems no human telescope had ever captured. This could revolutionize everything we know about you. Can't share it, Lyra interrupted gently. Not yet. My people believe in non-interference until a species reaches certain technological thresholds on their own. Then why show me? She moved closer, her luminescence brightening. Because I want you to understand what I see when I look at the cosmos. And, ... double quotes, she hesitated. Because I trust evolved into something deeper as winter settled over the city. They spent evenings stargazing from their balcony, with Lyra pointing out her home star system and sharing stories of her world. Sometimes caught in the wonder of these moments, her control would slip and her fingers would intertwine with his, sending pleasant waves of warmth through his entire body. Is this what your people call physical attraction? She asked once, examining their joined hands with scientific curiosity mixed with something more personal. Part of it, Ethan replied, her heart racing. There's more to it than that. Show me, she whispered. Their first kiss sent cascades of soft purple light rippling across her skin. When they separated, both were breathless. Tiny points of starlight swirled in her eyes. That was ... double quotes, she began. Yeah, he agreed, unable to find adequate words himself. As their relationship deepened, so did Lyra's dilemma. The communications from her superiors grew increasingly frequent and demanding. Each time the crystal pulsed with its urgent red light, her expression would darken. They're concerned about my integration patterns, she explained after one particularly tense exchange. They've detected unusual energy signatures in my transmissions, emotional imprints that shouldn't be there. What happens if they discover the truth? Ethan asked, holding her close as they lay beneath the skylight in his bedroom, watching stars drift overhead. Best case? I'm recalled immediately and subjected to recalibration procedures that would erase these new emotional pathways. In worst case, she turned to face him, her expression grave. They could determine that close contact with humans poses contamination risks to our research objectives. Future missions might be limited to long-distance observation only. They'd isolate our species from yours? For centuries, potentially, until humans reach space on their own, the weight of their situation pressed down on them both. Their personal connection could potentially alter the future relationship between two intelligent species. One night, as they lay tangled together in the gentle glow of her luminescence, Lyra made a confession. On my world, we don't have what you call love, she said quietly. We have genetic compatibility assessments and logical partnership formations. Nothing like this ... intensity. And now? Ethan asked, tracing the patterns of light that moved beneath her purple skin. Now I understand why humans have created art, music, and poetry for millennia, trying to capture this feeling. She pressed her forehead against his. It's both wonderful and terrifying. Their moment of intimacy was interrupted by a harsh, insistent pulse from the crystal in the other room, brighter and more urgent than any previous communication. Lyra went rigid. That's not a standard message protocol. That's an emergency directive. They rushed to her room where the crystal was now pulsing between red and white, emitting a series of tones that made Lyra's expression shift from concern to outright fear. What is it? Ethan asked. They've detected the emotional anomalies in my neural patterns. They're sending a retrieval team. Her voice shook. They'll be here in 3 Earth days to take you back, to evaluate whether I've been compromised, to determine if human emotional contagion is a threat to our research objectives. She gripped his hands tightly. If they find what we've become to each other, they'll erase my memories of you. They'll quarantine Earth for generations. Ethan's mind raced through possibilities, each more desperate than the last. Could we hide? Run away somewhere? Their tracking capabilities are beyond anything your technology could counter. She closed her eyes, concentrating. There's only one option. I have to leave before they arrive. Return to my ship and convince them my mission was compromised by technical factors, not emotional ones. And us. Everything we've shared? Lyra's luminescence dimmed to a soft glow. I would have to bury these memories deep enough that they couldn't detect them during neural scanning. It might mean forgetting you, at least consciously. The thought was unbearable. There has to be another way. Perhaps there is, she said slowly, her eyes focusing on the stars visible through the window. But it would mean breaking every protocol my people have established. It would mean choosing a side. The final night before the retrieval team's scheduled arrival, Ethan and Lyra stood on the university observatory's roof, looking up at the clear winter sky. She had brought her communication crystal, which now hovered between them, pulsing with soft blue light. "If I do this," she said, her voice barely audible above the wind, "there's no going back. I'll be severing my connection to my people, my home." Ethan took her hands, now fully purple and luminescent without any human disguise. "I would never ask you to make that choice. You're not asking. I'm choosing." She looked up at the stars, focusing on a point between Vela and Karina, where her home system lay. "My people value knowledge above all else. They sent me here to learn about humans. And I have learned something profound, that connection, emotional bonding, what you call love. It isn't a weakness or a contamination. It's a different kind of intelligence." The crystal between them began to change, its structure reorganizing into a more complex formation. "What are you doing?" Ethan asked. "Reprogramming my neural signature beacon. When the retrieval team arrives, they'll detect only the echo of a departed scout. They'll believe I suffered catastrophic system failure. Won't they investigate? Not if they believe human technology poses unexpected risks. It would reinforce their preference for distance observation." She worked with precise movements, fingers dancing over the crystal's facets. "But it means I can never return home. I'll be stranded on Earth. ... With you." The enormity of her sacrifice wasn't lost on Ethan. "Are you sure? This is your entire civilization, your history, ... double quotes. "Which I'll preserve and document," she countered. "Perhaps someday, when humans achieve interstellar travel on their own, we can bridge our worlds properly." Her luminescence brightened with resolve. "Until then, I can be a lone ambassador, learning and growing in ways my people never anticipated." As midnight approached, the crystal completed its transformation, separating into two distinct components, one that would transmit the false failure signal, and another that would remain with them. "It's done," Lyra whispered. They released the decoy component, watching as it rose into the night sky, becoming indistinguishable from the stars above. "How will you live here?" Ethan asked as they made their way back to their apartment. "You can't maintain your human disguise forever." "I won't have to," she replied. "The modifications I've made to my neural structure will allow me to gradually adapt a more permanent human appearance while retaining my Velaran consciousness," she demonstrated, allowing her purple luminescence to fade until she appeared human again, though her eyes retained faint starry points that would always mark her as something more. "And your research?" he asked. "Your mission?" "My mission has evolved," she said simply. "I'll continue studying humanity, but as a participant rather than an observer. And perhaps in time, I can subtly guide your scientific community toward discoveries that will eventually prepare Earth for official first contact." They reached their apartment just as dawn began to break. Inside, Lyra accessed her equipment one final time, monitoring space for the arrival of the retrieval vessel. "They're entering Earth's orbit," she announced, watching energy signatures on a projected display. "They've detected the failure signal." For tense hours they waited, holding each other as Lyra tracked the alien ship's movements. Finally, she exhaled with relief. They've accepted the report. They're leaving. The display showed the vessel moving away from Earth, accelerating toward the outer solar system. "What now?" Ethan asked, still processing that they had actually succeeded. Lyra smiled, taking his hand and placing it over her heart, where a gentle purple glow pulsed beneath her increasingly human appearance. "Now we live," she said. I'll help with your research within acceptable parameters, of course. We'll push the boundaries of human astronomy together. And someday, when Earth makes its own way to the stars, perhaps I can help broker a proper introduction between our peoples. Dr. Ethan Morgan and his mysteriously brilliant research partner. Changing astronomy forever, he mused, pulling her close. Sounds like science fiction. The best scientific breakthroughs always do, she replied, her eyes reflecting starlight in a way no humans ever could. My people seek knowledge through observation, but I've learned that true understanding comes from participation, from connection outside their window. The first light of a new day spread across the horizon. The stars fading, but not gone, just waiting to be rediscovered. I came here to study humans, Lyra whispered against his lips. Instead, I became partly human myself, and I don't regret it for a moment. As they kissed, the last piece of her communication array transformed into a small, crystalline pendant that would serve as a reminder of her origins while she embraced her future. Future neither of them could have imagined when a desperate graduate student posted a roommate ad and an alien scout looking for answers about. Humanity decided to reply. The universe, it seemed, had plans of its own plans that sometimes looked remarkably like love.